Let's go.
Let's do this.
Go. All right. Welcome back to another episode of the F1 Casuals. First and foremost, apologies for the disappearance for a little bit. We did record an episode with the Spa review. We had some technical issues.
Yeah, it didn't make the cut.
I don't know what happened. What
Blame it on the garage band.
I'm not taking any responsibility.
Blame it
No.
on the software. It's always the software.
And we had the camera audio. We always had the backup audio, but it's just not good enough to release. It was a great episode. That's really all you people out there.
Oh, I'm
need
sure
to
the
know.
people are so excited about that.
Oh yeah, 100%. And that voice you hear right now.
Sorry.
No,
Yeah,
that's okay. You
the
don't have to
dulcet voices.
apologize.
Yeah,
People are like, "Who's that? Did Greg?" No, I'm not going to go there.
Do
But
we have a new co-host or
we
what's
have
going on? No,
we
Greg.
have a guest of honor today that we're very excited to have with us. She's actually a neighbor of mine, lives down the hallway. We made a connection recently because the elevators aren't so great, so everyone's waiting for a really long time. And found out that you're a huge F1 fan.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, guess what? We have an F1 podcast. Well, I think it was the other way around, but it doesn't matter. It's little
We
details
connected. We
don't need to
connected. And in
worry
this
about.
world, we need more of those connections.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
So Greg, he is busy with work right now. He's doing some wheeling and dealing with the Trailblazers or something like that.
Yeah. Go
Very
Winterhawks.
nice. He's always, hey man, big sports guy, and so are we, of course. But without further ado, Mike, I'd love to introduce our guest today, entrepreneur extraordinaire,
Thank you.
Joey Adler.
It's really nice to be here. Thanks, guys.
Welcome to the pod.
Welcome to
Very
the
excited.
pod.
Talking F1. What could be more exciting, especially now that we're like in the hiatus period of F1?
Yes, we are in
So
silly
it's kind of
season.
lonely.
It is a little lonely. Everyone's
Yeah.
posting like, bring me back F1. I think what are we, 2 weeks away
We
from
got, like-
some Zandvoort?
Yeah. I mean, right, opening Sunday of football, you have F1 and then football after. The sports person's heaven.
Yeah.
It's a great combo.
Dream
Yeah.
weekend.
Yeah.
Dream
Yeah.
weekend.
Yeah.
And, we're going to cover a few topics today, kind of some like evergreen content, go into the history of F1, how you fell in love with the sport. And then we'll talk about, silly season, what's going on, who's signing pre-contracts, who's going to be where next year, who knows, but we're going to chat about it. But first and foremost,
Right.
how'd you get into F1?
It's really interesting. And I was thinking back, when you guys invited me, I was thinking like, I actually thought of that question myself, so it's interesting that you're actually asking it. But I guess it was Gilles Villeneuve. We don't realize like Quebec became a huge, well, first of all, Montreal is very European, as you guys know, huge Italian community, Ferrari. Like if you ever want to, live an existence and go to Little Italy when Italy won the World Cup. I mean, oh my goodness gracious. So, Formula One in Montreal, it become a really big sport. And when Gilles won the Grand Prix in Montreal that first year, it was 81, 82 or something.
Something like that.
I think it really, it mobilized a lot of the fan base, and I loved it, and it was great. And then I started watching Formula One on TV. I used to watch like the Long Beach, and then I liked that with that sick hairpin turn, and then I started to, we got involved with Jacques, with Gilles' son, and then Jacques had that world championship run, and then he won on the last day when Schumacher tried to kill him, and that was exciting. And then when I was the CEO of Diesel Canada. Red Bull, we were one of the original companies involved in Red Bull way back. Like we partied with them in Greece and all that stuff, and crazy stuff. And then,
Wasn't video back then.
oh God, no! What
No
happened
cell
in
phone.
Greece actually stayed in Greece.
That's right.
But
Mykonos?
it was Crete actually.
Oh.
And then it was a couple of places. All I know is that the resort ran out of alcohol.
Drank it dry. Yeah. You guys drank all the gin in Greece.
Yeah, basically. And I know that I think we were sleeping like 2 hours a night and then going to meetings at 9 o'clock in the morning. But that's for a different podcast.
Yeah. Of
But
course,
what
of course.
happened with Red Bull was it became this iconic drink, and then they came to us and they put fridges in our office, and then they came after and they said, we'd like. Red Bull was looking for local sponsors at every race.
Did they reach out to you? Like, how did that deal kind of come to be?
I think, Diesel was like a huge brand at the time when they were launching. And then I think probably a lot of us posted pictures. We discovered this Red Bull vodka craze and we were like, where everybody was up for like 24 hours for 10 days straight. And like Red Bull. Thank God nobody copped a heart attack or something. But I think they saw probably the social media and everything like that, and so they knocked on our door in Montreal. And the guy that represented him in Montreal, this Seb, I forget his last name. He's one of the best young marketing minds. And he came up and he knew one of our marketing people, and I was like, sure, let's do it. So we did some stuff with them, and it would give us some tickets so we could sit in that section, the Red Bull section, and we got to go into the paddocks and take pictures. And it's a great sport. It's fun, and it's very it's very glitzy.
Yeah,
and it's fun. It's just a fun place to be.
And what a great way to expand your brand globally as well.
Yeah.
Too. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we were global already.
Yeah.
They were.
Fair enough. Apologies.
We're very global.
Yeah, I think very popular in Europe. And
yeah. I think they saw they were very savvy in approaching that market, and they saw the diesel market and the Red Bull market as the same market.
Excellent.
And I think they were really right about that.
Yeah. Well, I remember that was probably was that mid 2000s?
No, it was early. Oh yeah.
With Red Bull,
yeah.
Well, I remember
exactly.
going
Sorry about
to.
that. I didn't open a beer, guys. Just opened my.
Instead of Boxing Rock.
By the way, we are still sponsored by Boxing Rock. Throw that one in there.
Excellent.
I do need to make another order because we only have the dark beer, and none of us are huge fans.
Grab that hunky dory.
Dark beer. So grab that hunky dory or grab a dark beer. There's some good stouts and some other good ones there. But right now we're just sticking to Red Bull.
Yeah.
Shout out. Water and, well, that might be water. You never know.
It's 100% water.
It's 100% water. 99%.
Tastes like vodka, man.
And a little bit of coffee. But no, that's really cool. I remember, mid-2000s going to D2. If you're from Halifax, you remember D2, the basement of Duggar's.
Yeah.
And diesel jeans were the jeans to get. Well, that's super cool. What would you be your fondest memory from F1 to this date?
I would say the championship of Jacques Villeneuve. As a Canadian.
Did you go to any of those races that year?
No, I did not. I did not go to Jacques. No, Jacques Villeneuve never won the Canadian.
Nope.
No.
He won the championship.
Correct.
But he didn't win the Canadian, no. So I don't think, I did go to races where Jacques was racing. I don't believe. The race that he won the championship was Japan, no?
I believe so, Suzuka. Yeah. Because that used to be the last race on the calendar.
That's right.
Yeah, and Schumacher turning into him on one of the last laps.
Look how I remember that.
Very nice.
Wonderful, yeah.
She's sharp.
Yeah. Don't ask me what I had for breakfast.
I had nothing.
Me neither.
Diet.
Intermittent fasting.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
exactly.
right. Yeah.
Okay.
That's cool. Jacques is he's such an enigma. He won the Indy 500.
Yes.
And then he goes and signs with Williams the next year, wins the championship.
Right. When Williams was
the
something.
best. So
something.
you can argue, okay, it's the car, but won the Indy 500. So, that's pretty impressive. And then kind of fell off. I don't know too much about F1 at that point. The listeners know that I only got into it when Drive to Survive came out 5-6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
What happened to Jacques? Do you guys know?
Well, I know. I think he kind of left this Formula One too when there was a major transition in sponsorship too. I think he was closely tied with players potentially. Philip Morris. I think there was a connection there.
And then they weren't allowed to do cigarettes.
Exactly. Yeah, and I believe performances kind of trailed off too. And
Bring back cigarette sponsors.
Sure. Hey, they were putting big money
because
up.
Crypto and booze and everything else is okay.
Exactly, right? Yeah, pick your vice. But,
right.
And then, it sort of disappeared out of the Formula One scene for a while and then started popping up back in grids. And then I believe he made comments about Latifi early on in Williams. And Williams ended up actually banning Jacques from their garage and whatnot.
Really?
Yeah, and I think, I know he apologized. I don't know if the relationship has been restored. But that would be the most recent happenings with Mr. Villeneuve Jr.
Yes.
Yeah. He started, I think, a restaurant. He had a restaurant on the corner of Crescent and the Maisonneuve, actually.
Yeah, right downtown.
Yeah, where everybody was kind of hanging out. And he did disappear. I don't even know if he lives in Montreal or where he lives or whatever, but...
Miami life, something like that.
He's got the bleach blonde hair, so there you go.
Yeah, but a nice guy.
A nice guy indeed. So, as the former president and CEO of Diesel, you are a branding and marketing expert.
Yeah.
And recently, maybe just a little bit. And Liberty Media recently took over F1, and I just mentioned Drive to Survive. They definitely had a hand in that. And they've, in some ways, Americanized the sport, but I think in a lot of ways it already has been Americanized. It's not like the Americans are strangers to fast cars and fast racing. But now you have, of course, the Miami GP, and this year coming up in November, the Las Vegas GP. So do you think they're doing a great job with growing the sport in America, but also at the same time kind of remaining true to F1's origins, the European origins? And
I would think that if you speak to a purist, they probably kind of frown on, but I think what's really important in terms of the sport is the sheer amount of money it takes to run a team.
Yeah.
And we see it with the vast amount of branding on the cars and the helmets and the shirts, and like it's just everywhere you turn. Politicians should have to do that too, by the way.
I agree.
I've heard
Where's
that
your PAC
before.
money?
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. But I think so. When you look at the amount of probably eyeballs in Europe versus eyeballs in the U.S., like for example, I'm sure Canadians are watching, like we watch Formula, like Ontario, Quebec, like we are avid watchers of Formula One on TSN, right?
Yeah.
But in the U.S., like how many people are watching the races? You needed to create something around. You want to say Americanization? I don't want to be disparaging about that. I think it's really about hype and fun, and it's the glitz and the glamour around it. It's kind of like, the Super Bowl. Nobody watches football, but on the Super Bowl, everyone watches the Super Bowl, and they watch the commercials and they watch the halftime show. And so, if as you've said to me in the past, that every F1 is like a Super Bowl for the Europeans, that mentality has to drive, because these cars need money to race.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, if you take a look at Aston as the perfect example, right? Aston Martin is using F1 to hype, to market their brand new direction of this iconic car. But they lost, I think it's like $400 million this past year, even though they've been able to write it off because they had one-time expenses and it's only 113, whatever it is. The fact remains that if Aston is going to survive as a company, it needs that F1 to thrive.
Yeah.
And they want the American market because that's the biggest market in the world. So some purists might not like it, but you have to really be hypocritical to not look at a driver, a car, the paddock, and say, extra marketing is no good and Americanization is no good. I mean, if America didn't invent marketing, who did?
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I guess speaking from a purist point of view, I completely agree with you.
I love
100%.
Thank you.
The sport will never stop. It needs to grow, and it needs to tap into this larger market so that the sport can continue to grow.
Yeah.
Right. It just, I think, would be not at the sacrifice of some of those historical circuits like we've discussed in the past and whatnot. So I guess I do have a question is do you see potentially a second race in Canada anywhere in the country?
Ooh.
I mean, if we're talking about America, let's talk about North America too, right?
Oh yeah, Canada's buying power.
So Toronto has Indy, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I don't know what that circuit looks like. Is it?
It's a street circuit.
Is it a Formula One? Because I think a street circuit would be very cool. But again, the amount of money it takes a city. Like I remember when we skipped that 1 year in Montreal.
Yeah.
Whoa, you don't know what it. I mean, that 1 week period in Montreal brings in the numbers that are brought in are ridiculous
The
numbers.
big spenders come to town.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it actually hurt Montreal because some people, what happened is the European fans had one foreign destination they would go to. So if you're Italian and you went to Monza and then you said, I'm going to go one place, Montreal.
Yeah.
Right. And then Montreal doesn't come. So maybe they switch to Amsterdam or something and now all of a sudden they're not going back to Montreal.
Even when it comes back.
Right. Yeah. So Does the city have vision? Does the city understand what it can do? Toronto's very spread out. It's not like Montreal. Montreal is this like little hub of community. Everybody's, when you go Crescent and Mountain at Formula One, the whole world is down there.
Yeah.
Toronto's a more spread out, not as kind of warm, fuzzy city. Even though it's an amazing city and we love it and it's great. Please, Torontonians, don't get upset. But it's not that European vibe that Montreal has.
No, definitely not.
I don't know what other city where it could go.
Well, let me tell you.
Right.
I don't know if you knew this,
What?
but Halifax used to have a street race.
Yeah, we used to have an Indy race here, actually, that
And we
went
had-
around the Commons.
Yeah, and F3 as well. Now, it wasn't F3 called F3 back then, but it went
would
around
be
Citadel Hill too.
Crazy race.
Very cool.
Yeah. So, I mean, it left because of money, I assume.
Yeah, definitely.
Moosehead
City
was
wouldn't
the main
support it,
sponsor,
yeah.
and they pulled out.
Yeah.
I think it was
Andretti
2 or
raced
3.
too. Yeah.
I got to say, Halifax is an amazing city, and they could do a lot more in terms of bringing events here. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what it would take.
You could speak to that because you used to be an event promoter back in the day. Is it the red tape? Like, is it just the vision's not
Money.
there?
It's always money.
It's always money.
It's always
yeah.
money. Forever, this was a student town. And then we went through economical hardship through 2008, 2016 and whatnot. And that sort of really killed the entertainment, I guess, as far as like concert venues, bar scenes and things like that. Yeah, it's, I don't know. The fan base here for Formula One, I know, is very large, and motorsport in general. So, of course, we'd love to see a series come back at a certain level. I don't think Formula One would consider coming back here, and I don't think the province could afford it because it costs a tremendous amount of money.
I don't think it could
But-
manage it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If infrastructure-wise and logistics-wise.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny because like some of the original barriers from these races that were like 96, 95, maybe 94.
Yeah, it was like
were still
early
there
90s.
until they did their recent renovation with the pool on the Commons. Like those barriers were still there.
Oh, those were for the
Those were from the race.
That's
yeah.
amazing.
Ah.
Isn't that interesting?
So a little bit of
Yeah.
history there, but maybe somewhere like Vancouver, beautiful city, mountain, ocean,
Vancouver would be a great city.
around the Olympic Village area kind of
Yeah,
thing. I think that'd be beautiful. But just to jump back into Montreal, statisticians say that the Formula One race weekend or week for Montreal is the largest single week of revenue generating for tourism or anything in general for the entire country.
Yeah.
So that one week
Have
has
you
the
have
most
you seen the
impact.
prices?
For tickets?
No,
I mean, they're only going
Hotel
up,
rooms,
but-
$1,000 a night.
It's
things
not
like
just
that,
hotel,
yeah.
the restaurants, everything.
Yeah.
The prices are jacked up hugely, and it makes or breaks some businesses in Montreal.
Very
Yeah.
much so.
No
They make their
discussion.
year on that.
Yeah, 100%.
So, well, it's great, that like you said, when we have foreign tourists, European, wherever they may come to our country and our beautiful cities to support the sport, but also support the country. So, for Montreal to take a year off, it's a big loss, just not for the city, not for the sport, but for the country
It was a big
as well.
loss. It's good that it's back, so
Yeah.
that's
And
exciting.
I think they've secured kind of like a long-term deal, 2027, maybe 2030. I think they're into now.
Yeah,
So
2029.
I think it's going to be hard for them. The drivers love Montreal.
Yes,
The teams
yes.
love Montreal.
Mm.
It's not just a regular race. It's one of those iconic spots
Yeah.
where the drivers like to come to.
a lot of history, and they look
Yeah.
forward to the circuit
Yeah.
in general. Just
Yeah, the
because
circuit's really a nice circuit.
Well, let's stay in Montreal and talk about our guy that we've ridiculed in the past, and our listeners are like, "Oh, you better not be talking about Lance and Lawrence again." But here we are. We're going to talk about it because Lawrence, the mogul, he has a background in the fashion industry. That's where he made his money.
Mm-hmm.
You have a tie to that, obviously, where we just talked about Diesel,
Mm-hmm.
and we talked about does Lance. Is he going to be a championship driver? Does he deserve to be there? So many different things. I think we're both on the same page where, yes, on merit, he should be in F1. And I think we got to the point where it's like, well, I think Lawrence is building a championship team, and is Lance going to be part of that? So I think, does F1 exist with Lawrence and Lance separately, or are they always going to be together?
As you know, like I know Lawrence. I've met him a couple of times. My late husband did business with him, and the only thing I can say about Lawrence is, from my point of view, is he's everything he touches turns to gold. He's one of the best minds out there of an entrepreneur and marketing guy. So if he turns around Aston, which I believe he will,
He already is. It would appear.
that's amazing. I also think that Lawrence loves his son more than he loves anything else.
Right.
I do not believe, as long as Lawrence, first of all, to go back to Lance, I was surprised. I was not a Lance fan up until last year because
Interesting.
I felt that it was possible he was there because his father's influence. Then you realize that a lot of the drivers are there because of certain influences. Not the best drivers in the world are not automatically in Formula One. They
Correct.
have a lot of hoops that they have to jump through to get to Formula One. So, you have a handful of what we would consider the best of the best, right? If you look at the drivers on the grid now, we can discuss them and we can pick the 5 there there is no one better than them. You go 1 through 5, no one's better. After that, I'm going to hazard to say 5 to 20. We could probably interchange.
Very
Right?
interesting. Yeah, and I completely agree. Yeah.
So, but what I heard this year, because even the Sky broadcast that we get through TSN is kind of pivoted a little bit because of the race he had when he broke his wrist the first race and how amazing he was. And then on one of the early races, I think he surpassed he has the most points of any Canadian driver.
Yeah.
Now you've got Jacques, albeit a small, unfortunately, God rest his soul, a short career. You have Gilles who won a world championship.
Wait, other way around.
Sorry, Gilles and Jacques.
Yeah.
And the beginning of his career was, let's say, in a very, very undesirable car. We're going to be polite about it. Undesirable. I could find a lot of other words for it. So that tells us that the kid knows how to drive a car.
Yeah.
And so what I think needs to understand is why the backward step from the beginning of this year in the Aston. So now that they were ahead, they were a comfortable third place, and now they're tussling with Ferrari and McLaren for who's going to get that third place, and they're like 2 points. So what's happening in the car there? That's a key. He's 24 years old.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think he's a very young driver, and I think for his age and starting in a good car now, I think he's doing well. He's not that far behind Alonso. He's holding his own. I think there's something happening in the car, though, that's taking him backwards, so we can figure that out.
Yeah, that's interesting, right? Because, they came out of the gate swinging this
something's
year
gone backwards.
with Fernando getting podium after podium. I mean, at the beginning of the season, we were like, we're going to get Fernando's 33rd win. It is just a matter of time.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this before, where I think they were so pleased with what they had done with the car, they didn't maybe necessarily want to mess it up. And then you had the rest of the teams like McLaren, like Ferrari. They're not doing great, so the pressure's on to catch up to Aston Martin. So they're just working overtime to fix their cars.
Right.
Where Aston Martin's like, we're in a good spot. Maybe let's not do too much.
Yeah, they're not tweaking
but
it. Yeah, maybe.
They had those major upgrades in, I believe it was Montreal, and it seems like that's when the car started to go the wrong direction.
Oh, they were trying to probably win Montreal. That wouldn't surprise me that Lawrence is like, do whatever you got to do to win the race.
I think he's, sorry to interrupt, but I think Lawrence even stated like a double podium is possible.
Yeah.
At Montreal. I think a contributing factor would be that the wind tunnel allocation time was reset in June. So, and it was based off current positions. And at the time, Aston Martin was in third. Right. So that's why there was a huge push for them to get all these early season upgrades. Because they knew that like their R&D time was going to be dramatically reduced based on where they finished last year up until the point of June when it reset. So those other teams, McLaren that finished lower or whatever, now have additional time for development. So you're starting to see that gap close and then be surpassed by these other teams.
That sounds like a reasonable reasoning. Yeah. Well done, Sir Mike.
Thank you. It's not like they don't have the money though, right? And but yeah, just the exponential growth from Force India, Sahara, when those Strolls took over the team, so I think that will continue. I just think it's a little bit of a slow burn, and we're all very eagerly anticipating, this first win again from Aston Martin after such a long drought.
I think it'll come.
Yeah,
it may not be this year.
I agree,
but it'll come.
Yeah.
Oh,
And hopefully they hold on to Alonso, and both drivers can rack up the points.
I think Lawrence is a very smart man, and I think Lawrence realizes that Alonso teaching his kid and influence in the paddock could be huge for them, and whatever money he has to throw at Alonso, he'll throw at Alonso.
Yeah. Same with Vettel.
Yeah. It's not even a discussion.
Yeah. Okay, very fair. Let's pivot to another father-son duo that are famous in F1. Well, one is in F1. The other one's a famous driver. I don't think
the Sainz.
The Sainz is Carlos Sr. never raced in F1, as far as I know. He's a rally guy.
He's a crazy rally guy.
He's a crazy rally guy.
This guy's
guy.
this guy's a different level of brave.
Oh my, I mean, he's still racing at whatever age he is, and he's crashing
in his 60s,
and still wants to race. Like he had broken ribs or something.
Crazy man.
Yeah. And I think he has a significant amount of influence over Carlos's career, like 100%. Lawrence, but in a different way. And Carlos apparently has signed a pre-contract with Audi, who's entering F1 in 2026. And we talked about this off camera, like, what the hell is a pre-contract? It's basically nothing. But there has always been that speculation with Carlos at Ferrari, plays second fiddle to Charles. Charles is the golden boy at Ferrari. That's who they want to win. And maybe he wants to go somewhere else. And maybe that is Audi. I was actually pushing for Aston Martin when Fernando leaves. But I want to hear your opinion on the matter, Joey. Where do you think Carlos ends up? Does he stick with Ferrari? And I think Charles just signed a new contract with them.
Yeah.
Or does he look elsewhere?
I think one of the things that Mike pointed out when we were kind of talking offline, which I think I agree with, is that whatever it is, the rumor that he's actually potentially signed with Audi actually puts him in a very bad position, because he could end up being ostracized in the paddock, and it's going to be very tough for him to operate in the car going forward and not knowing what the heck is going on. So that's number one. So the fact that somebody leaked that he signed something, I think, is ridiculous, even if it's true. That said, the latest I heard was he's saying, no, I didn't sign. My personal belief is I don't believe he will stay with Ferrari, because I do not believe that Ferrari sees him as the number one driver. And they can barely manage one car. They can't arrange a two. They can't arrange a 2-car funeral.
That's right.
So we've seen their management of races. So they're always going to sacrifice Carlos for Leclerc, and I don't think Carlos likes that. He's hanging in, and I don't think he should either, because I think he's a very talented driver.
Yeah, I mean, he's fought back on team radio a lot this year. I think that's changed from last year, where he was like, okay, I think this is wrong, but I'll do it. But now he's like, no. I
mean, I don't know what they did the last time. They brought him in, or they didn't bring him in. The tire changes, like the mistakes that they make are like just monumental. So you've got a team that's still not gelling, I think, in terms of race management. And then you have the golden, as you call them, the golden boys. So why are you
sticking
hanging
around?
Yeah. So, and it's not like Ferrari's Red Bull. It's not like Ferrari's winning every race that you're saying, hey, I'm going to get my shot because we're so far ahead of the pack, and so once in a while I'm going to beat Leclerc. You're barely hanging on to third.
Yeah.
It's not like Ferrari's a Ferrari anymore.
You're right.
Yeah.
Nope.
But it could be.
Yeah,
I think
that's right.
they got their act. So Audi coming in, but there's other things, like there's Red Bull.
Yeah.
He's a former Red Bull Academy driver. He was with Toro Rosso, I mean, he probably would have ended up in that second Red Bull seat if he didn't move to, was it McLaren that he moved to right after?
Yeah, well, he went Renault, McLaren. But I know he does have obviously has a pre-existing relationship with Andrea Seidel, who was team principal at McLaren while he was there, who will now be team principal and possibly CEO of Audi F1.
That's got to be 100% him.
100%.
This guy is
Yeah.
a genius.
Just like we've seen at Williams with James Vallis,
Yeah.
there are these difference makers within
Right.
the sport. And, if there's a close relationship, a pre-existing relationship there where, and I believe Carlos felt like he had success at McLaren,
Yeah.
individual success. So, there might be like, those undertones, those backroom conversations happening, but publicly, not a good look.
He's
Yeah.
said no.
Yeah.
I think, and as we've discussed also, is there's one domino, and that domino is Lewis.
Yeah, exactly.
And Lewis will decide pretty much where everybody else falls into line. And that's where I think we are waiting for. We're waiting for Lewis to sign a new contract, and it's not signed. It's in negotiations. It's da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So there's no guarantees, although I think it's hard for someone to leave after so many years, but there's no guarantees. Like if I was Audi, I'd go after Lewis.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Lewis is 38.
Correct.
So he'll be 41. Was it 2023 right now? He'll be 41 if he gets to Audi.
Alonso's age.
I mean, Alonso's age, but Alonso is like, he's an enigma too. Like, he could maybe go till he's 50. He's like the Gordie Howe of F1. But I don't know, even at that age, even like 35 plus, like going to a new team after you've been with Mercedes so long, and where does he go? Does he go to Ferrari? Does he go to a team that's been riddled with mistakes?
I think Lewis actually, to me, the best place, if I was Lewis now, the only place I'd change for would be Ferrari.
Yeah.
And only because of the iconic branding of the thing.
Yeah.
It's not even to win.
I mean,
it's
if
just if I'm going to
Yeah.
leave Mercedes, there's only one team to go to.
Yeah.
And
It's called Fawawi,
Fawawi.
as my nephew used to
And
call
also,
it.
like, we can't omit, Lewis's absolute undying fascination and admiration, not just for Ferrari, but for the drivers that they've had in the past. He's a
Yeah.
huge Schumacher and a huge Senna fan. So he definitely wants to follow in those footsteps.
I see him in that red
And
jumper, by the way.
I do too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've
For
seen
2
Photoshop
seasons,
of it.
2
It
seasons
looks
max,
good.
and then he
Yeah.
retires.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, or maybe even one. But that's the only. So I think where he goes, I think will
Be the caveat to.
I believe so.
Yeah, there's something
They'll
to say
decide other
about
people's
that.
fates,
I mean, you think about the New York Rangers, who haven't won a cup since the early '90s. I'm a Devils fan. The Rangers suck. They still get big name free agent signings,
Big franchise.
regardless of
It's
where
New York.
they are.
It's New York.
Yeah, it's New York City.
Well,
Yeah.
it's the ability to get sponsorship.
Yeah.
That's the biggest point of an agent, of any player in any sport going to a market.
Mhm.
Taxes.
Yeah.
And
That's a
what
big
can they
one.
get?
Yeah.
And what
Image
can they get?
rights.
And what can they get in sponsorship?
Yeah,
How much money can they make in the local market?
Yeah.
And
Ferrari
New-
would break the bank for Lewis.
Yeah, but New York, yes, Ferrari would break the bank, and New York is the market.
Yeah. Very fair. Well, let's keep on going with this speculation because it is silly season. And Mike, you were saying before we started the recording here that a bunch of F1 experts, I'm going to say that in quotations,
Air quotes.
we're speculating where drivers are going to end up over the next few years. And there were some interesting ones.
So Michelle,
what do you got?
Michelle Foster, her picks are the ones that stand out for me was that Daniel Ricciardo to Aston Martin.
No way!
Michelle!
Right?
hell?
I know. Come on.
Who's she?
Yeah.
Oh
Where's your
my
pride? I don't know.
God.
But that was definitely
Based
a standout
on what?
one.
Is there like some reasoning behind that?
That's not happening. Sorry, Michelle. It's
No.
not
Yeah,
happening.
it says, sorry, Lance, I don't have much of heart when Aston learned this year that something said was for the past. So hello, Danny Rick.
So she thinks that Lance is done.
Yeah, she 100% thinks that Lance is done and that Mick Schumacher will also end up at Williams, which is an interesting one.
No.
Yeah.
No, I don't believe
Not
that.
possible, yeah.
Mick Schumacher's next drive is in a team that can win. He's not going back to Williams. He's either going to go to Mercedes or I could see Ferrari for him too.
Yeah, and with Toto Wolff backing him now,
Toto.
that's a big name for as an agent
How
that
about
will
Lewis
protect his client.
and Mick?
100%.
In the Ferraris.
Where do you put Leclerc?
He's gone.
A lot of people are saying
This
he might
is
go to Red Bull too.
2026.
Leclerc?
Yeah, there's potential for that. I'm also seeing like in the lower teams there, like not much change. Some people are saying that Yuki's going to go to Williams as well.
Why
What
is
else
everybody
we
running
got
to
here?
Williams?
Yuki's not leaving Red Bull.
Sure, I guess
Like-
James Valls has a lot of pull there.
Well, I
you
mean,
know what I mean?
the Scuderia is like 10th,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's 10th, which That's not really the norm. The norm there is Williams.
Yeah, and
Right?
Alpha's actually going through some big changes right now too. Or sorry, Alfa Romeo. Sorry, they will have big changes,
Yeah.
so they might have some draw there
Well,
as
same
well.
with
but
AlphaTauri. They're rebranding
Exactly,
completely,
yeah.
bringing in new
Yeah,
people.
they need
Yeah.
a new brand. I think that brand just annoys
Yeah.
me after actually.
Yeah.
The other one I like. Haas was showing like glimpses of kind of goodness like 2
Yeah.
years ago, right? They
Yeah.
were actually doing well.
they were.
Yeah, they finished fourth early on. in
Yeah,
their- in
they
their-
were battling McLaren for fourth.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Renault as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and what happened?
They ended up
Rich
finishing like
energy.
sixth. Well, yeah. And just honestly, like a lot of crashes
Yeah, a
too.
lot of crashes.
That cost them significant revenue.
Yeah, that's why you don't bring in
COVID too. You
Grosjean.
know what I mean? Like we had no fans, and
Yeah.
and for
Yeah.
a smaller team like Haas, you know, they heavily rely on merchandise sales,
Yeah.
image
Oh,
rights for the
that's true.
TV,
That's true.
ticket attendance and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So you know, their revenue would have taken a big hit over those couple years.
And that goes back to our conversation before, like for the Americanization, like
Yeah.
nobody would benefit more from a high image F1 would be Haas as the only
Yeah.
American team.
I'm very surprised. Like Haas, their marketing is terrible. I would imagine most Americans are not even Haas fans. They're fans of other teams. And I don't like. I really think that whether it's like the people at Liberty Media, the higher ups at F1, like take a huge step towards making Haas the number one team
But-
for American
But
fans.
let's discuss it, right? Gunther
Gunther
could be
Steiner.
the personality of F1.
Yeah.
Like without a doubt, the most iconic personality of F1. And this guy does commercials. Have you ever seen him do his commercials?
I have to look these up. Like,
It's hysterical.
Yeah.
So
Let's see
he's
that.
in Europe doing all these commercials, and he's bringing
Yeah.
a lot of money into the team that way.
Yeah.
Can that translate into the States? But I think that if Haas was smart, they would get, some celebrity that could, go in the paddock. And, it's like when you go to
Yeah.
Mercedes, at Miami, who was in the paddock?
Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
Tom Brady.
Brad
David
Pitt.
Brad-
Beckham. Yeah.
Yeah, they were all there.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are there because IWC, which is also a sponsor of Mercedes. And then there's the relationship. Many of them have relationship with Lewis. So
Yeah.
Mercedes gets these iconic figures hanging around the paddock, and that helps.
Michael Douglas, big
Yeah.
time supporter.
But again,
Yeah.
does Mercedes have to sell another car? I don't think so. But
No, and I feel like a lot of these celebrities. I mean, Haas may reach out, and their agents are like, "Listen, you don't want to be seen in the Haas garage. Like, go to Mercedes."
I'd hang with Gunter.
I would too.
I'd
hang
love
with
to be
Gunter.
there. Yeah.
Gunter's fun, man.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Somebody's missing the boat.
We got his
I
book out in
agree.
the studio
Yeah, yeah.
there.
For me, it's also, I don't know. I don't want to be too critical of Haas and stuff like that, but like the logo doesn't really speak to me. There's certain aspects of their branding that I think they could do a shift on.
I agree.
Yeah,
The car could use
yeah.
some beautification.
Very
Oh,
much so.
and then they
Like I
made
think
it
the Aston
Russian
is
for
the
a
most
hot
beautiful
sec?
car, by the way.
Oh
me?
yeah, 100%.
I think the Aston Martin's the most beautiful car.
Beautiful.
Everything from the color to the branding, it's by far the most beautiful car.
Oh yeah, it's gorgeous. I still think that Lawrence should buy
Jaguar.
Jaguar, and then make that his second team. Buy Haas. No, you can't buy Haas, but like, I don't know, AlphaTauri or Alfa Romeo, whatever. Put Lance in that seat at Jaguar, and then bring Carlos in. You got Fernando Carlos, the two Spanish meisters.
Playing chess over here,
Maestros
are we? Yeah.
in Aston
Yeah.
Martin, 2026,
Yeah.
baby.
Yeah, let's see what happens next year if he turns a profit. If he stops the bleeding. If he stops the bleeding in
Yeah.
2024 financially,
Mm.
this guy's the people are going to pour money. His stock's up. The stock is up. It went up $17 on a
Wow.
$400 million loss.
Wow.
We should have
Yeah.
bought.
Yeah.
Aston Martin stock.
Would the cost for their new factory and whatnot be incorporated into those losses, or is that
No,
okay,
that'd be
yeah,
that's a
wow.
capital. That's
Yeah.
a capitalization.
Yeah.
So that's an investment. It's not part of
Right.
it. It's a balance sheet item, not an income statement.
So if you think about the amount of money that is involved with this
yeah.
team right now and the development, not just on the track, but within the infrastructure and development and whatnot at back in the UK, it's those figures are astronomical. So the Strolls are fully committed, and let's hope it
And they have
translates
other
to results
and they have other
podiums.
partners.
Yeah.
He's got
True, very
got,
true.
He's
They
got
got
very important
Cognizant.
partners. No, but also his partner in the Far East that he's been partners with for many, many, many years.
Oh yeah, the Ramco.
No,
No, that was someone else. Unnamed.
it doesn't
We'll
matter.
leave it. We don't need to name names.
Right.
All
Because
right.
I don't even know if he's really involved. I assume he is from all being involved in other deals, but I don't know if he's involved in this.
Okay,
Which
that's
I'd be
fair.
surprised if he wasn't, so I'm not going to
That's fair.
spew words.
Well,
Yeah, McLaren's got a similar situation too.
McLaren's amazing in terms of what they've done. But then you go steal the best engineer in the world, you know?
Yeah.
that's how it works. That's F1.
Invest in your people.
If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
Yeah.
All right. Well, speaking of the best right now, it's Red Bull, and it's not even close. Got a couple
Crazy.
questions for you.
Sure.
As everyone knows listening, some happy about it, most not. Red Bull has won every single race this year. They've broken records. Max is on the verge of breaking Seb Vettel's record of most races won in a row
What's
by
that,
a
8?
single driver. It's 9.
9.
I
So
believe
he's
he's
at
at 8 now.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that's a second alone now. So 2 questions. One, can Red Bull, or should I say, can, obviously it's a yes, but will Red Bull win every single race this season? And 2, where does Max rank among the best F1 drivers of all time?
In my personal opinion, I think he ranks in the top drivers of all time. And
Top 5? Top 3?
I'm going to say top 5 for now.
Yeah, fair.
But by the end of his career, it could be top 1. And
Wow.
and I'll explain to you why I see it, because even as Lewis really, dominated the sport for 7 years and won 7 championships in a row, I don't think he's the same level of driver as Max. Max may not run long enough to win 7,
Yeah.
but what he's done, there's 147 points difference between him and his teammate, and they drive literally the exact same cars. I don't know how much more people need to know than that.
Yep.
That alone is mind-boggling. You're literally driving the same cars, okay, and you're 147 points ahead of your teammate
Halfway through the season.
halfway through the season.
Yeah.
It's and we saw it. We saw him penalized, start at 14, win the race. We saw him penalized at 6th place, win the race. Like, he does what he wants. And the thing to me that said everything this year was he's racing, he's in front of the Ferrari, he's 23 seconds ahead. And the pundits are laughing. Wouldn't it be funny if he went in, changed his tires, and tried for the fastest, lap to get that one extra measly point? Well, don't you know that he does that in the penultimate lap? He's got 23 seconds. He goes into the pits. He gets the tires changed, puts the soft tires on, comes out, and races for the fastest lap.
Gets it.
500,000 things could have gone wrong. If he was in a Ferrari, believe me, it would have
Yeah.
gone wrong. But
And he was only, when he came out, it
he was
only
2
2
seconds.
to 3 seconds.
Yeah, but
and
that's an
he's-
eternity, dude.
He's warming up his
Yeah.
tires.
Yeah.
He's hot dogging it. And you
Yeah.
can see Charles just
Yeah, but
behind
that's
him.
that's the finger
Yeah,
right there.
very
That's-
much so.
That's basically telling Ferrari,
You're nothing.
you're nothing. But that showed me something. I said, that is a different level of driver. That's a driver that doesn't have an ounce of fear. There's not an ounce of hesitation. There's not a millisecond of fear, and you see it. And when the drivers get mad at him, and it's not unlike Schumacher. Schumacher was the same,
Correct.
right?
Yeah, very
Oh, yeah.
much so.
Because at the end of the day on that race in Japan, did he try to take him out, or he just tried to get the inside track and then he ended up? The reality is these guys are fearless,
Yeah.
and there's not that many
Yeah.
that have ever done that.
Very, very much agree. So, I mean, we saw it in Monza when Max and Lewis came together at the first
Yeah.
corner of the chicane there,
Yeah.
you know?
And Lewis
So,
backed off.
Exactly.
Yeah. He's going to take anything
Yeah.
that's given to him and then
Yeah.
some.
Yeah, so I think he's definitely top, in my opinion, definitely top 5. And it doesn't matter. I don't care if he wins 7. If he races, one more year and he wins 3 in a row, it won't change that he's the best.
Yeah.
Or one of the
I mean,
best.
Lewis never had a gap to his teammate or any other competitor of that substantial amount, especially at this point in the season in any of his championships years. I mean, Nico pushed him year after year.
Yeah.
Lewis barely skirted by in a couple situations. Nico got him once out of that 8 years. But,
And Mercedes made them their golden boys, so he got advantages that Nico didn't either.
Very much so.
So-
Yeah, but Nico had to play the psychology game. So we saw Lewis susceptible to this type of
Yeah.
modern warfare, we'll say, within Formula One, which is the psychological battle. Because when the cars are so close and the abilities are so close, well, what's that X factor? Well, Max definitely has it.
Yeah,
He's-
it's just
yeah.
it's a different.
He's unflappable.
Yeah.
So you're in Vegas. You got $100,000
Mm-hmm.
to bet on will Red Bull win every single race for the rest of the season,
Depends
or will
on
they
the
not?
odds. Depends on the odds.
Ooh,
Love it. Yeah, great
Yeah.
rebuttal.
Where's our odds maker?
Great rebuttal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You give me even odds, I'm not putting it down.
You're not
But you
taking
give me
it.
some long odds, I might think.
Can't be
Ten-
too
10 to-
long
10
though.
to
Somebody
1.
check.
No, 2-1 max.
No,
like, at this
no.
point,
I want
it'd be
long
like-
odds.
No, I don't think it's 2-1.
No?
I think it's longer than that.
Longer.
5.
Okay.
Is it how many races left? 13?
12 or
12.
13.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a fair amount of races.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
just takes one freaking little dust up.
That's right.
9 to 1.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, it's got to be 10-1 or
Yeah,
nothing.
yeah, more.
More. 15.
I mean, it is a tall ask, right? Like, and anything can happen. And the circuits that we are coming up on, susceptible to weather. We'll see what happens in Japan and whatnot. But Max and that Red Bull have been bulletproof all year.
Yeah.
So it's gonna, does somebody take him out just out of aggravation? Do we see maybe an Ocon incident again where somebody's trying to unlap themselves and
Yeah.
it causes, like
I think the weather's the key. I
Yeah.
don't think Max can do what he does as well in the rain.
I completely agree.
So
Not that he's not strong in the rain,
no, but
yeah.
it's a different. You can't drive the same way in the rain. So.
Yeah.
The rain, he starts at pole and he gets ahead, and it's raining. He doesn't care. There's no one in front of him shooting water at him.
Yeah.
But if he's behind and he's trying to come back in the rain, it's not the easiest thing.
Yeah, you never know. Suzuka is on the calendar.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, the rain
Happy
capital
for
of
the-
Formula One.
Yeah, you're right about that. Like, and credit to the fans because it was pouring
Oh
last
my God,
year.
do you remember
yeah,
that?
I
It
do.
was
Yeah, and they
crazy.
stuck it out for
Yeah,
sure. So
yeah. I mean, does anyone not agree with me that he's one of the greatest? Like, am I gonna-
I have definitely put him in
Yeah.
the top 5 of all time.
Thank
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't think he will stay long enough to tie or break Lewis and Schumacher's record. He's
I
got
don't believe he will either.
he's got too many aspirations in other forms of racing. He wants to race Le Mans.
Yeah.
He may be IndyCar, and he's starting a GT3 team. Like, he's doing all things racing, and F1 is kind of losing. It's kind of boring.
Yeah, I don't want to.
Like,
The same word came to mind. You know what I mean? But like, how long can he last just being
I will
first
tell you,
every
if
time?
he
He's a
won
competitive guy, right?
If he won every race this year, he should retire.
He would retire.
I would do it.
I would
you
do
know
it.
what I mean?
Like
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's great. If he does that, then he's got to retire.
How do you top that?
Nah, there's
right?
nothing to do.
Yeah.
But
Retire at the
but
top.
Checo won a race, so he didn't win every race.
no, yeah, Checo won.
Jeddah.
Checo,
One or
yeah,
two?
Checo won
Just one.
one
Jeddah.
race. That's the breakup between the 4 straight and then break up and then the 8
Right.
straight.
Yeah.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's how Red Bull was still able to achieve that 12 in a row.
Right.
Unbelievable. Yeah. Very cool. Well, it's been fantastic, but we're going to finish off with one topic that we've touched on a few times. We actually did an episode, a special one with the Ultimate Paddock Pass. They're a podcast in Spain. Very
Oh,
cool.
Yeah. Entirely female.
Love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, yeah. And we talked about F1 Academy, and this
Right.
is this new initiative. We had the W Series for 3 years. It wasn't run properly. I think a lot of these drivers haven't even been paid yet. It unofficially folded this year when F1 Academy unofficially took its place. It seems way more organized. You have Susie Wolf involved at the top. You have more sponsors involved. You have actual, F2 teams like Prima Racing, all females still. And we brought it up because we thought it wasn't being marketed properly. And I think any new league, whatever it is, whatever sport, whatever sex, you need to market the hell out of it.
Right.
And you need to market it properly. And it was difficult to find full broadcasts. In fact, you couldn't find full broadcasts of the races.
No.
And the highlights would come up, 3-4 days later. And you look at the F1 races, the highlights are up 10 seconds after the race is
Right.
over. So we had a little bit of a debate on that. More recently, they announced that all 10 F1 teams will have a team in F1 Academy next year. So I think that's fantastic. Susie announced a lot of different initiatives that they're going to be doing at the grassroots levels with the karting in England. They've got a whole tier system. But with all that being said, there has been another side to that story, and it comes from other females in the sport. Sophia Flores, she's in F3, and she didn't like W Series. She thought it was bad for the sport. If you're
Why?
not competing against the top talent, she said,
That's ridiculous.
then how can you improve? Danica Patrick has come out and said a similar sentiment. She received a lot of backlash
She
for
did.
that.
Yeah.
But I guess I'd like to know your opinion on this. As a female, as someone who's been an F1 fan and understands how business works, do you think the F1 Academy is the right initiative, or do you think they should be pushing female? You can still do your grassroots level. That's no problem there. But start that to eventually get females within the pyramid that is, open category, essentially.
Yeah, so I think this is a really, it doesn't matter what they try to do, someone's going to criticize it. So let's understand that. But I do believe that what it needs to be is a lot of money poured into the kids, the girls that are 9, 10, and 11 and 12 years old that want to race, and they can compete with the guys in the kart circuits. Because the cost of putting a kid in a kart circuit is so much. The amount of money that the families have to spend is like insurmountable. Like, I don't even know how. I mean, Lawrence, I know. Lawrence had a garage in Montreal. The kids had multiple cars in there. Like, there was no, I mean, when you have like, God bless him. Like, he had a lot of endless money, no problem. But the kids that he raced against could never compete with him because they didn't have the freaking engineers and the mechanics working on their carts, It's like a mini Formula One team.
Yeah.
So I think the best thing that could happen is if they started a kart series where all the cars and the mechanics and everything were paid for by the organization.
Yeah, I like that concept.
So basically, all the cars would be the same.
Equal playing field.
Equal playing field. Boys and girls, put the kids in, and they fight for their seats.
Identify the talent.
And identify the talent, and then start to move it up. The problem is not identifying the talent. The problem is there's talent that just can't compete because it's too costly.
Yeah.
You got a middle-class family. The kid wants to go-kart. What family is 20, 30 grand a year?
Right.
It's not possible.
Yeah.
And then you have fathers who could spend $250,000 a year. They can't compete there either. So if they really wanted to change the sport and identify talent and equal the playing field, get the kart with every team sponsored by a team in F1, and they pay for the year of karting, and they recruit the talent based on skill. You basically lose your seat, or you don't lose your seat.
And I think at that level, 8, 9, and 10, I mean, I don't want to get in trouble for saying this, but the difference in talent level in adults between female and male right now in racing,
it's large.
It's evident. It's large.
Of
but
course.
you go back to, and this, you could say this for most sports, you go to, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
No, even for any sport, like
It's
girls
much
are playing
smaller.
hockey. They play, yes.
Yeah.
And if we go on the proviso that a female honing her reflexes and her physical capabilities could compete at the F1 level eventually, I don't know that. We'd have to know that because we also got to know, like, physically we're different, right? But at that level, you hit the nail on the head. From 9 to 14, probably there's girls and boys can compete pretty much at every sport level. And so, and we do that, and then you move the talent along, and you identify and then you move them up, and then you give the space for new kids. But everybody's on the same, every kart's the same, every playing field. So you run an F1 kart series.
Yeah, that'd be very cool.
Everyone
Very
gets
cool.
a fair shake.
Yeah.
And it's not just, and would be a complete shift in like the Formula One model, which is completely sponsorship based.
Right.
So, let's make it more talent based, right?
That's
and give equal opportunity so that people like Esteban Ocon, who, is very much an enigma in as far as getting into F1 because his father was a mechanic and stuff like that, versus the Strolls and the Checos that have major advertising and family money behind them.
Yeah.
So, I think the playing field needs to be equal.
That's right.
Let's give these kids a shot to see what they got and develop, not only identify that talent, but have the opportunity to identify and then develop that talent. So,
And I really think that the other thing that women, I think, would really enjoy is being at the management of the team.
Yeah.
The management, the marketing,
strategy,
the strategy, engineers.
Yes.
Designers, like, start to formulate that because, like, even in engineering school, like, when you go back to my generation, like, how many women do you think were in engineering school? Like 1%.
1%?
Yeah,
Not
less.
many.
Yeah. So it's, you know, the sexes have definitely had different paths. Now, as a society, we're trying to kind of, you know, meld those paths. I think we're going, again, pendulum swinging from one end to the other, which is always a problem, but hopefully it lands somewhere in the middle.
Right. Yeah.
Where we open doors for women in as many areas as we can without eroding the rights of others.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I think you make a great point there. Like at the end of the day, there are only 20 F1 seats in the entire world.
That's right.
Whether it's male or female,
Yes.
20 is the smallest number
It's
ever.
crazy.
But you know what's a big number? The rest of those teams. So why not try and get more females interested on
That's
the
right.
other side? I mean,
Absolutely.
obviously, yeah, everyone wants to be a driver. Everyone wants to compete at the highest level. But at the same time, there's probably a lot of people that would rather be in the garages,
Of course.
be those designers, and be, you know, the chief
Yeah.
strategists.
But I think if you have like different levels of F1 kart, and then you go on, and where you're really encouraging females to participate, and then to also, and you're leveling the playing field, you're going to get that percentage of girls that can really compete.
Oh, yeah.
There's
Yeah.
not even a discussion about
Mm-hmm.
that.
I completely agree.
Exactly. I think right now it's like you can't answer that question of can females compete? Can they
You can't.
compete with males at
You're
the F1 level? Because we've never pushed females
We don't
the way
have
we've
the-
pushed males.
We don't have the pedigree moving up from kart up.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Kart is so important. You see all these F1 drivers, they excelled at kart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were identified when they were 13, 14 years old. There's like,
Yeah.
whether it be Max or any of them.
Lando's a great example
Yeah.
of that as well.
Right.
Yeah, for Lando, what was that,
Yeah.
like 5 years ago?
Yeah, and even Lance. Lance was a massive
Yep.
kart
Oh,
runner,
yeah.
and then he ended up getting into the Ferrari Junior Academy. Some people say it's his father, whatever. You know what?
I think those were performance based that
That's right.
got him into that
Exactly.
academy.
I
Yeah.
mean, he's an
Yeah.
F3 champion, so
Yeah.
I mean, there's something to say
Yeah.
about that. No, I agree. I think at its core, I think F1 Academy is a good idea because it's not just focusing on the current racers, the current drivers, who really aren't going to be the true benefactors of this initiative. You know, it's great they're going to be the potential role models that these younger people look up to, but it is the younger people and the people that aren't even born yet, the women that aren't even born yet, the girls, that this is going to really help out.
I think also one of the things that you said at the beginning was really kind of a double-edged sword, where you said the marketing hasn't been very good. I think part of that is they don't want the marketing so much. They're trying to figure out what the best model is.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
start to promote an inferior product that's not settled,
Yeah,
that can actually do more harm than good.
Detrimental to the brand.
very
That's
good
right.
point. Very
And
good
then
point.
and then it ultimately will
you
fall
know what you're
back.
saying.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it would fall back on the drivers and the
Yeah.
talent.
And it would
right?
just have a
So,
backlash.
Yeah.
So they're probably just doing things under the radar, trying to see what
What
you
works,
know, what
yeah.
works, what doesn't work, what they can engage the fans with in a way that elevates and evolves the product.
Yeah.
I think it's way too new and way too outside the box of F1 to be out there rah-rah-rahing when you're
Yeah.
going to fall flat on your face.
And like to bring them in on like a race weekend, it's way too early for that,
Way
in my
too early.
opinion.
So
Way too
maybe the not broadcasting the full races is actually on purpose.
100%, in my opinion. They're not stupid.
Interesting.
They just
Interesting
want to
note
test. They're
leave on.
testing out. They're testing.
Okay. All right.
It's a preseason season, you know?
Yeah.
Very fair.
Exactly. Let's figure out how to do this thing before we start
Yeah.
waving the flag.
And putting a lot of money behind it
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
Right.
Well, we'll keep our eyes on it.
Exactamundo.
That's for sure.
But regardless, I think we're all consensus where we are supporters for this program and we are supporters for women progressing within the
Yeah, of
sport and
course.
whatever it is.
Of course.
Yeah.
We
So,
want everybody
it's
to
great.
have fun.
Yeah, exactly. That's the name of the game.
All the sexes to have fun.
Yeah.
I don't know how many there are right now, but
Oh, 30,000 of them.
yeah, whatever makes you happy, we're going to support you.
That's right.
Awesome. Love it. Well, Joey, it's been a pleasure
Thank
having you here.
I've
I
had a
think
great time.
We'll have you on again when the season starts back
Love
up
it.
again, and
Yeah.
you
Love
can be
it.
part of a review. Maybe we watch a
Yeah.
race all together.
We should.
yeah,
Yeah.
that would be awesome.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Excellent. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. Well, before we get out of here, folks, we got to ask you those few demands. Please, if you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, subscribe to the podcast. Give us that 5-star rating if you want, and leave a review. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you thought of us taking that hiatus off, whether it was on purpose or not. Just, ridicule us. Throw words at us. We don't care.
Just engage.
Just engage. Apple
Love us,
might
hate
care.
us. Just call us.
No swear words. You might get canceled by Apple. I don't really know. If you're watching on YouTube in living color, what do you got to do, Mike?
You got to smash that bell. You got to subscribe, give us a like, and definitely drop a comment in the section there.
Yeah. Get a battle going in the YouTube comments. That's always a fun time.
Also, don't forget to check us out on the socials at F1 Casual.
Damn right. We are on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, everywhere.
Hot Reels coming daily.
You got
Almost
that.
daily, I guess.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Me
Mark.
too.
Not trying to put
Daily
the pressure
again.
on you.
Daily
But
You
yeah.
guys are El Fuego, man.
Yeah, we're all over the place.
We are.
We love it, and we're excited to get this episode up and get back into the swing of things.
That's right. Bring the season back. Let's go.
Absolutely. Well, until then, folks, it's lights out.
Buenas noches.
We'll see you on the grid.
Love it. Thank you, Joey. Appreciate
Thank
your
you,
time.
guys.
Yeah,
Thanks,
that was
Mike.
wonderful.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah.